Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the Phantom Grove. But before we get started at the Phantom Groves, I just do want to shout out some of the things that are happening in the game right now that are actually worth your time and investment. Normally between fusions, it's kind of like the opportunity for you to do some sort of Minotaur prep. Maybe you're building up that masteries on the Gnut that you've just got, or you're basically taking a bit of a breather after quite an intensive fusion. But what Playroom have been liking to do lately is throwing in these like non-fusion related events that have slightly better rewards to try and encourage you to keep playing the game. And this window is no different. We've got a champion training tournament where you can win a Gnut skin, but if you ignore the whole trying to win a Gnut skin and just look at the side rewards, you get basically a prism summon, which, you know, I've done my thoughts and feedbacks about the prism system. I look at this as kind of like half a sacred shard because you've got a 40% chance of getting an epic out of this. So it's basically a free bonus summon. It's better than an ancient shard, and it's not as good as a sacred shard, but it is better than an ancient shard. But you will kind of get like a legendary book for 10,000. Whenever they do these champion training tournaments where you can win a champion, win a skin, they always throw this legendary book, and 10,000 champion training points for a legendary book is as good as it's going to get. You can obviously use books to sort of do this tournament. So if you haven't booked your Gnut yet and you don't really care about clan versus clan, then obviously that can help you get up to this 10,000 marker as well. We got a bit of essence, which is always nice to see, although I'd love to see double that number, but there you go. And we also have these chests, which again, like if we're just replacing like a charm or some core hammers, and I can walk away with an energy refill or some gems, and it's not a bad thing at all. So definitely champion training tournament looks good. We got the dragon turn attack tournament as well. Again, there's another summon at the top. There's an epic book. These rewards are pretty okay. If you can win the tournament, you'll get yourself more prism crystals. So, you know, just getting more chances at those very cool limited champions. And also we've got a very good dungeon divers on at the moment. It's a lot of points, but it's another legendary book. So if you're going hard on the dragon tournament, then you can get yourself a legendary book here for 6,000, which is rare that you see a legendary book on dungeon divers. So lots going on. There is a summon rush at the moment, which, you know, I tried to get a Harima. I walked away with a Danag Skull Reap, which is just typical. But hey, you know, I did try to get the Grisor as well, but we didn't get any lucky. But, you know, that's that. But the main reason I'm doing this video right now is I've got Gnut, which is kind of what I was waiting for. And I've built a pretty, I would say, accessible. And I'm going to say this with a bit of an asterisk because it does depend on a reho. And reho is a guaranteed void. So it's kind of accessible, but kind of not. An accessible team that actually doesn't use an awful lot of like Acrisias and max HP new, because it's actually quite a clever team and I'm quite happy with it. So we're going to be looking at the Phantom Grove. So by now you would have seen a lot of Phantom Grove videos. I know YST has done boatloads of efforts and work trying to help the community understand how the boss works. The boss, you know, I've done a video on it. The boss has got a lot of text messiness, for a better word. The boss sounds and reads very, very complicated. But in essence, it can be boiled down to two simple mechanics. You need to make sure that you don't increase your shade counter, and you just need to make sure that you keep enfeeble on a single target. If you achieve both of those outcomes, all of the other abilities are irrelevant, even to the extent that this Wraith Javelin doesn't even happen unless you have 10. So there's lots of things in here that's just all these words, all these different complicated things, all these different factors. Ultimately, if you lose a champion, you probably lose the run. And if you don't control the shade counter, that's what the boss ties all his mechanics around. But there are some quirks and different things that you need to be aware of that you can really optimize your way of running this team. So as I alluded to in my original video, I think the easiest way that you control this is you just stop the spreading or control the spreading of the enfeeble debuff. So what the boss is going to do, he's going to pick the target with the highest crit damage. Now, there's been some confusion about Stone Skin. He used to, on the test server, only target Stone Skin. Obviously, that was a bit stupid. It was so easy. You could just basically put any broken, like kind of basic Stone Skin build together and it disabled the boss. So they've changed it now. On live, you can't actually use Stone Skin unless you use everyone in Stone Skin. So he will avoid Stone Skin unless there is no other option. Then he will just target the champion with the highest crit damage. So there is a world where you can just run like 5 champions in Stone Skin, but I think for the majority of players it's not really realistic. So what you'll probably do is you will probably run a target for enfeeble. So it targets the highest crit damage. It places block passive skills on all of your allies. So things like Accessory passive will not work. Things like Geomancer passive will not work. Things like two Hanoraks passive, Doom Priest passives to cleanse off the spreaded debuffs will not work. All the things that we used to use that were really, really powerful, they won't work because this block passive skills goes on. And if you noticed here, it is unremovable. You cannot get rid of it, so got to keep that in mind. Now, you can avoid the block passive skills by putting Stone Skin on like your Accessory. So if you want to use Accessory, she has to be in Stone Skin because you can't stop. She's not usable otherwise. And I've seen strategies where you just do have like quadruple Accessory and just one-shot it. I guess it could work. But that's not what we're looking at today. So you basically get your single target gets hit with the block passive skills and the enfeeble. Everyone gets block passive skills. And then what happens is the boss follows up with this A2 Scoured Sword. He attacks the enfeeble target and he will spread enfeeble to all enemies. And he also places decreased defense. Now, the enfeeble he spreads can be cleansed, but the initial one cannot. So as long as you keep your enfeeble target in a controlled, alive state, he'll only ever keep attacking that target. That's the way that he kind of works. And as long as you get rid of the spread enfeeble, then his whole skill set doesn't matter because essentially everything is tied to that enfeeble. The way that the boss increases his shade counter is weak hits, and obviously enfeeble is a new debuff. That means that you always weak hit. There are some edge case champions, like if a champion cannot weak hit, if a champion also always crits and stuff like that, it means it will always avoid the weak hitting. People like Gnarlhorn come to mind, so he kind of makes an interesting option for a enfeeble tank because essentially he can never increase the shade counter and he will always be the only one that has enfeeble. So you can do some clever stuff like that, but generally you just want to have a setup where the enfeeble target is quite slow. So let me show you how we've counted it in this team. I'm going to run it quickly here so I can just show you visually how it works. He's going to attack my Renegade. My Renegade has the highest crit damage in this team. As you can see, everyone has got block passive skills and only one enfeeble. We're then going to come in with a Riho A2 here. We're going to apply lots of debuffs. We get our first Gnut smash. Gnut is essential to this team. Then we have Whisper following up. But you can see what will happen now is the boss will attack Whisper Renegade again. Now we have this spreaded debuffs. So it would be pretty disastrous if any of my champions attacked right now because we've got a triple hit Gnut, a triple hit Ruella. One thing to note about this shade counter, which I think is really dodgy, if you attack with a champion, every single individual attack that weak hits will increase it by 8, which makes multi-hitters like Cold Heart a really dangerous thing if you cannot get rid of this enfeeble. However, if you attack with an awakened champion, then the level of awakening reduces that shade counter, but it doesn't work for every single critical hit. So it's a bit weird. Like I really don't like the concept that, okay, if you hit once, then you take away 8, but if you use a skill, then it just takes away the awakening. It basically means someone like a 1-star Gnut will actually take only 1 shade counter, but if he attacks and weak hits, he'll increase it by 8 times 3. So it's really, really poor. So just keep that in mind. Multi-hitters, when they weak hit, will do it per hit, but the awakening only reduces it by 1 skill. It's on a skill usage. In this system now, it would be a pretty bad situation, but we have Riho, and Riho is going to cleanse away and heal all of those debuffs. You need someone in this team that can cleanse and heal. That's kind of the point. The heal is very important. Renegade comes in, reset, so we don't increase the shade counter. You will increase the shade counter when you cleanse it, but as long as it stays below 10 or 20, the shade counter is rather, irrelevant. And we come in there and finish the boss off. So that's the way that the mechanics works. Let me just explain the team, because the team is actually doing a lot. I had a lot of people on live stream saying, what's Ruella doing? It doesn't seem like it makes sense. We want Renegade to reset our maximum HP nukers. We need to hit the boss for 100%. Gnut will always do 30% on his A3. Doesn't even need to be in a crazy build. I'll show all the builds at the end of this. But Gnut 1 A3 is essentially 30% of the boss. So if we have 2, we get 60%. So we need to find 40% more damage from our remaining team. Whisper is our main secondary damage dealer. Now, some people might be saying, why Whisper? What's so special about Whisper? She ignores 100% of the target's damage, but she also guarantees herself an extra turn because of that A3. It's not tied to a passive. It's built into the skill, so she doesn't get that disabled. So what you'll invariably find is a well-built Whisper will always outdamage a single target maximum HP nuke that doesn't double hit, because a single maximum HP nuke on stage 24 is around about 409,000 damage. Her A2 combined with the A3 combined with Phantom Touch will exceed that 400,000 quite comfortably. So it makes her a more viable sort of nuker here, and she's also void, and she's also epic. So accessibility, rarity, all of it makes more sense to use her. But she does need setup. So let me explain the setup here. We'll run it again. So again, Renegade is the target for my Enfeeble. She's super slow. The idea of an Enfeeble tank is super slow, super tanky, but extremely high crit damage. Basically the highest crit damage in the team. You want her just to be staying alive. There's also some little quirks that I've done around the Enfeeble target to help keep it alive. Next up, we're going to do Riho's A2. Now, Riho's A2 sets up the Whisper because Whisper requires decreased defense and weaken. The weaken is required to ignore all of the target's defense. The decreased defense is required to set up the A3. Blessed Bash is fine. We just basically need to do it. You notice how the first hit there actually doesn't max HP nuke, so I probably need to improve my Gnut build. He's still only level 38, so it'll help when we get masteries and stuff, but we need to improve the Gnut build to actually improve the effectiveness, because we're not actually getting 30% there. Now Whisper will get an extra turn if there's decreased defense and weaken on the target, which is why Riho initially opens with A2. So we can open with that, get an extra turn, and then we open with this charged assault. Increased attack is placed, increased crit rate is placed, and will ignore all of the boss's defense if there is a weaken. Again, it's not tied to a passive, so the only thing we lose at the moment is 20% damage and the 10% chance of granting an extra turn. But because she gets a guaranteed extra turn, she's almost already outrunning this. You'll see we're going to go A2 here. Now, we've only got one turn left. We do get a chance to reduce that because we've got her in Relentless set. Now in this situation here, Riho is what makes this team really powerful. Again, we only lose this reflection ability on Riho, but this ability here is crazy. We get a massive heal and we get block debuffs and we remove them all. We then reset, we go Blessed Bash. We have a reflex and refresh set on the Gnut, which means 9 times out of 10, I tend to find he has the A3 back. Even though it's a 4-turn cooldown and Renegade only reduces it by 2 turns, we generally have the A3 back from Gnut. Now, the reason why Ruella is in this team, I have got my Whisper built at 70% crit rate. When she opens with the A3, she doesn't have the crit rate buff. Ruella is in here for 2 reasons. Firstly, we're going to get some turn meter boost, but we're going to get the increased crit rate. This means that her A3 on Whisper is guaranteed to crit because she's not at maximum crit rate until she does that A2. Secondly, she is a second source of decreased defense and weaken for the boss. So she opens initially on the first wave with A3, and then she's going to use A2 here so that we replenish the debuffs. Now, we did get unlucky, she 3%ed, because actually what we want to do on the second run here is we want Riho to re-heal to keep our Renegade alive. So we're actually going to lose this rotation because we got 3%ed, and it's going to take the run a little bit longer. But luckily, Riho can reapply that A2, and we can go back in for another nuke. As long as we keep Renegade alive, this team will never fail. The moment Renegade dies, the team falls apart. So a lot of the enhancements we need to do to this team is to push closer to that threshold, get Gnut stronger built. Maybe get some higher awakenings on Whisper so we can get a little bit more damage. Those are the key things. Maybe getting this Brimstone higher so we always have the Brimstone. Increasing the Soul Reap up to 3 stars so we get a higher threshold. These things will help solidify the team. But let me run it again. We'll slow it down a little bit further and we will manual it. So the way that this is going to work, we get that first Enfeeble, we open with A2, we get our first debuffs placed. Brilliant. Brimstone also. We open with Blessed Bash. A little bit on Gnut's A3. We've discovered that Gnut's A3 doesn't stack with Cruelty or Harima. It's kind of like a combined sum. It's the same mechanic that happens with multiple cruelties. If you have a 2-star Cruelty on your team and a 5-star Cruelty on your team, both of them can start incrementing that Cruelty stack, but you can only go to the highest quantity, right? So you can't double up. You can only increase it to that sort of cap. So 2-star will work up until the point that you get to 5%, and then after that only the other Cruelty can stack up from that other champion. It works the same thing here. Gnut will always do more defense drop than Cruelty, so my advice would be, in a single target setting, Do not use Cruelty with Gnut. It's a waste of a blessing because Cruelty essentially becomes worthless because Gnut will stack it up so fast. It only needs 2 rotations of the A3 because at the moment it does actually 5%, not 3%. So we're coming in with Ruella. Ruella's going to then A3 to give ourselves the increased crit rate. We're now in a situation where this is going to guarantee us a crit because we've got increased crit rate. And we're also going to get that extra turn, which is what we want to have here. Not with increased attack yet. Hit for 356,000. Then we go in here, we're going to reset and heal up, and then we're going to go again. We get that Blessed Bash again, fully capped out, great. Ruella's going to A2 to make sure we get the decreased defense and we can back out. We got it this time. Then we're going to basically get that extra turn in and kill it. And this works pretty much every single time. The only time it's failed is if Renegade dies, or if we just really get super unlucky with 3%. If Riho 3%, the decreased defense and weaken, and Ruella does. But as long as Renegade stays alive, this is pretty much... I'll show you how quick it is on a full auto. I can get it to about 25 seconds. If I get some optimizations, then I can probably get it even lower. We actually got the full crit there this time. 409 double time. Renegade comes in here. Whisper got that extra turn this time, so she's now got her passive back. So she'll do 20% more damage here. So the first A2 is always 20% less than the second A2. And then we just finish it off here, and Whisper will kill this boss. And that is the team. Now let's have a look at some of the builds here. Renegade is the most important build alongside Whisper and Gnut. Now Gnut's build is actually going to be quite easy to do for most players because you don't actually need that much to hit the cap. But the Renegade is the most important build, and it is the most, like, it's the weirdest build you will ever build. I have basically got her in almost like she's meant to be damaging, but she's really tanky. Now you might be wondering, good lord, why have you got triple reaction? Well, the boss actually is one of the few bosses that has a lot of crit rate. Most bosses have 15% crit rate, which means 9 times out of 10, you'll get crit every so often, but you don't really worry about it. The boss here starts at 50% crit rate. So actually, Riho is even more powerful here. She's really god tier for this boss because we essentially get a decreased crit rate debuff alongside decreased defense and weaken and decreased attack. You pretty much get everything you need to make sure that the boss doesn't one-shot your target on this one ability. Now, obviously, we can't stop the boss taking a turn because he has some crazy speeds. Like, you could build your Riho to 351 speed if you truly wanted to, but they put it that fast because they want the boss to go first. So I would argue that probably you don't need to go that fast. You just need to go to the speeds that I've got here, and you just need to tank the first hit. So how do we tank the first hit that's going to have a 50% chance to crit without decreased attack? Well, we have reaction. Because what does reaction do? It doesn't reduce the enemy's critical hit chance. It goes, if a critical hit would happen, then it has a 25, 50, or 75% chance to turn that into a normal attack, which means you're reducing the risk that your enfeebled target basically just gets one shot. I think it's really, really good. Like you can see, I'm just using my kind of throwaway reaction gear. I've got her in a HP because I don't need the crit damage because I've got all my other champions a bit lower. But if your crit damage on your other champions is higher, like you've got a really, really decked out Whisper, then you might need a crit damage amulet. You can see these amulets are not the best in the world. I'm using my throwaway gear that's not amazing. I've somehow been blessed with a lot of reaction amulets and reaction banners in the Night Revenants. I don't really know why, but I have been blessed with them. So all we're doing is we're looking at the tanky rings. We're looking for things that gives us HP defense, defense HP, HP defense. We want to just make this target extremely tanky. And then I'm using some weird builds, like I've got a defense percentage with crit damage. We've got crit damage rolls here. Crit damage with HP. We've got crit damage with defense. These are all kind of like gear that I would save up in case a really good defense-based or HP-based nuker came out. Defense, crit damage. We've also got HP% boots with crit damage. So the goal here is to make your Renegade here a really, really tanky champion. We've got her at 284% crit damage, no crit rate. We don't really care about damage here. She's really super slow, 111 speed. Don't really care about resistance and accuracy. You can't resist the debuffs anyway. You can't stop the debuff spread like I originally thought. Now, they have come out and said, okay, you can resist the debuff spreading. So you can stop the decreased defense and the enfeeble going on the other allies. But that would mean you'd have to build your other allies in high resistance. So I wouldn't recommend that strategy because I think that's just, like, it's just easier to bring a cleanser. But you can build your other champions in high resistance if you want. You can't resist a block passive skills though, so just keep that in mind. So you can see I've got a no accuracy, no resistance, no speed, no crit rate, no attack. All she is built is HP, defense, and the highest crit damage on the team, so she gets that target. We've got a few masteries here, like we've got a shield. What I will probably do to optimize it even further is I will probably bring a bolster set on someone like the Ruella to basically reduce the amount of incoming damage, right? To give her a bit more effective HP, I'd probably swap Ruella here to a bolster set and put Ruella extremely tanky, because again, Ruella is not required for damage here. We have got her in a bit of a damaging build, but she's not going to attack on the first animation. She's only going to attack once. So realistically, you're going to get more damage from War Master than you are going to get from Ruella here. So I will probably replace this build with a bolster set. But again, you can see I've got her built at 217 speed. We've got the Riho now built. She was originally my clan boss. I've kind of taken her out of the clan boss build, and we've got her built here. Still not fully built, in 265 speed, 490 accuracy. Now, your supporting crew, as long as the enfeebled target doesn't die, does not need any defensive stats, because they will never get attacked. So all you need to do is hit the accuracy breakpoint, which at stage 24 is 555, and then 265 speed. I haven't done a proper speed tune calculation for this yet, so there could be speed, you could go a little bit slower potentially. I want it run more time after this, but if you look at the way that the champions take a turn, that's the turn order you need. So the key champions here is the Gnut, who is currently, I haven't got masteries on him yet. I'm still working on this. I've only just got him. He is booked. We are using as well his accuracy aura to try and mitigate some of the issues. That's what's great about him. If you put him in the lead, you get 80 accuracy for free. And he is built in reflex, refresh, 233 speed, 371 accuracy, 229% crit damage at the moment. And he's scaling up for defense and accuracy because he's leveling at the moment. That is enough to basically hit the crit cap. I would say maybe another 10%, 20%. You don't need an awful lot to hit crit caps for these maximum HP, because it's single target, there's no reduction effects. As long as there's decreased defense and weaken out on this target, you'll hit the cap pretty quickly. So that is his build. And then the queen of the team, the one that really kind of ties it all together, is of course Whisper. Now I am trying to, and I will be looking to buy a 6-star soul for Whisper. The more I am using Whisper, the more she is becoming as good as a seer for me when it comes to bosses. She is just a queen for killing bosses. I've done a full guide on Whisper. You can go check it out. I'll put the card somewhere around about there. You can go check out my full guide on Whisper. I've got her in Relentless because we get a guaranteed extra turn. Any champion that guarantees an extra turn, you should put them in Relentless. The RNG is really good because it means you get another chance at rolling the Relentless per turn. So normally a champion would have one roll at 18%. I'm actually going to get two, because I get a chance here and I get a chance here to get that extra turn, and it kind of stacks and it queues it up. So we get a Phantom Touch Blessing. Pretty much Phantom Touch is good, and I don't think Crushing Rend is even better at 6-star unless you're in like a range. The boss's defense is like 12,000. If the boss is in like 6,500 to 2,500, then it's worth running Crushing Rend in my opinion. That's irrespective of any defense debuff, right? You can't take the boss from 12,000 down. The boss in Shogun has such a high defense at 12,000. Phantom Touch will end up just doing more damage because you can't ignore enough defense to get enough damage out of Crushing Rend. And we already ignore 100% of the defense anyway. So the only thing that Crushing Rend would benefit is this ability, and it's not going to do enough. So actually, we just want Phantom Touch. Ideally, if we can get up to 6-star, we get that guaranteed 2+. But what we actually get is 5% more crit damage here, another sort of 100 attack, and another 10 speed. We're also at 4-star going to get 20% more crit damage. So this build has 25% more crit damage to come at 6-star Awakening, which is pretty big. We also have a pretty crazy build. This is the strongest build in this team. Got a crazy amulet here. Didn't roll the crit damage, unfortunately, on the Ascension. We're still trying to find a crit damage amulet in the Night Revenants. She's at 7.1k attack, 262% crit damage. This is the build that you'd want to push extremely hard if you can. The more crit damage, the more attack, the more damage that A2 is going to do. You are not capped on the A2 damage. There is no limitation to how much damage you can push like there is with Gnut. There comes a point with Gnut that putting more damage on him doesn't really benefit him because he can't exceed that sort of 409,000 damage, and the A2, because it doesn't ignore any defense, is going to do no damage. So This is like Gnut is all about the A3, where Whisper, you can keep pushing more damage on this A2 if you can push more stats. So that's where you would want to build it. So we'll run it one more time. It's a bit of a lengthy video, a lot of talking, but I'm really kind of like, I'm impressed with my own sort of big brain. I knew this kind of team would work, and a lot of people were saying to me, oh, look, once you get to stage 24, Renegade as an enfeebled target's going to be too squishy. It's not going to work. Whisper won't do enough damage. Maximum HP will be better. You know, that Ruella's not going to be much use. Well, Riho with Renegade is an incredibly strong team. So if you were lucky enough that you got a Riho, or you paid the Voids when she was a guaranteed champion, because Riho was a guaranteed Void legendary at one point, you've done your Gnut fusion, and you've managed to pick up these, I would say, accessible epics. I mean, it's an epic, right? Void epics. You could wait a long time, but you might have picked up a Whisper along the way. Like, these champions are great for this. You know, I don't really have that many high souls. It's not like the awakening system is making this viable. Yes, they help, but they're not dependent upon it. The weakens, these souls are basically only dropping the stack a little bit, because we're not allowing the boss to climb above his shade counter. We're not allowing him to use his mechanics. Yes, we give him 8 here, and yes, we drop it down by 1 or 2, but you can see we're only dropping it a little bit. It's as long as it stays below 20, you'll never have any problems. We're going for one more Blessed Bash, and Soul Reap will finish it off. This is where I'm saying, if I can get a little bit more souls, we can actually get this probably to a 20 turn. If we get that 6-star Whisper, we get this Gnut up to a 3-star, so we get him up to an 8% threshold for Soul Reap. If we get this to a 5-star, so we get much more opportunities to get this Brimstone out, it all makes a little bit of difference. So there you go, guys. Phantom Shogun Grove, it's a stage 24. 25 is bad because Gnut is weak affinity. And I think Gnut is such a strong champion for this that I think it's just probably better to run stage 24, even though 25 is more efficient for some oils, just because of the pace and the ease of accessibility. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to try and optimize it even further, see how hard I can push it down in terms of time. But a 26-second run for probably the second hardest stage in Shogun Grove, that is pretty much 100%. So long as I keep my Renegade alive. You even saw in the build that I had more space to add more HP and defense and things onto the Renegade. We can put that bolster set in so that initial hit is even less. Pretty much, as long as Renegade stays alive, this team does not fail. And we basically kind of one-shot it here. You can see how often I'm getting reflex back as well on that Gnut's A3. Because the Gnut A3 is a 4-turn, not a 3-turn, so Renegade doesn't fully reset it. That's a 25-second run there. 404,000 on that A2. She does ramp up the lower the HP the target gets. So there you go, guys. Phantom Shogun Grove, farmed, completed. I hope that was of interest to you so you can understand a little bit of the sensitivity and sort of the little quirks you can build in here to make it better, like the reaction on your enfeebled target, or using someone like Ruella to help the Whisper get that increased crit rate so you don't have to open with the A2 and miss out that guaranteed extra turn. Yes, you know, Riho is not very substitutable here. I agree for this team composition. But you can look at other comps. Go check out YST's channel. He's got lots of different compositions that don't use a Riho. I just wanted to show you this team. If you have a Riho and you have a Gnut and you have a Whisper, this is a very viable team for you. The builds are not that extreme. Whisper is just probably a little bit on the extreme edge case, but you could easily kind of adapt and adjust. There you go, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, if you like these kind of guide videos, let me know in the comments below. I'll do more of them. If you want to see more videos from the channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so it goes straight into your feed. I think around about 53% of you who are watching don't subscribe to the channel. Obviously, it's great that you watch the videos, but if you want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.